What would you do if your mother-in-law stole your wedding money to bail out a criminal? Sarah's story will leave you speechless. And trust me, the ending involves handcuffs. Sarah always knew her mother-in-law Margaret didn't like her. From day one, Margaret was polite in front of her son David, but cold when they were alone. For years, she found subtle ways to let Sarah know she wasn't truly part of the family. Everything changed when David's father Philip passed away suddenly. Unlike Margaret, Philip had always treated Sarah kindly. Before he died, he had set aside money for David and Sarah's dream wedding, a generous gift from a loving father. With Philip gone, Margaret technically controlled the family finances. She assured them they could still use that money for their wedding. Sarah believed her, despite their rocky relationship. For months, they planned their perfect day. Venue booked, caterer hired, photographer selected. Margaret wasn't involved much, which honestly Sarah preferred. But then disaster struck. David's sister Linda's husband got arrested for fraud charges. It was a huge family scandal. Linda was devastated, and Margaret was beside herself. 6. Weeks before the wedding, David got a strange call from a relative. Linda's husband was somehow out on bail. But how? The bail was set incredibly high. David called his mother directly. After pressing her, Margaret finally confessed the unthinkable truth. She had used Philip's wedding fund to bail out Linda's criminal husband. Sarah will never forget that phone call. She watched David's face go pale with disbelief and anger as his mother tried to justify herself. Family comes first, Margaret said through tears. Your father would have wanted the whole family together at your wedding. Sarah jumped in, asking why Margaret would take their wedding money without even asking. Margaret immediately became hostile, saying words that cut like knives. You wouldn't understand because you're not a real member of this family. Sarah was stunned and in tears. David immediately defended his wife, but the damage was done. Margaret had the audacity to say they should be grateful that now Linda's husband could attend their wedding instead of sitting in jail. Grateful for stealing their entire wedding. Budget? With no money left, Sarah and David made a heartbreaking decision. They canceled their dream wedding entirely. All those deposits, all those plans, gone because Margaret decided something else was more important. But they weren't going to let Margaret ruin everything. They planned a secret backyard wedding with just their closest friends and Sarah's family. They deliberately didn't tell Margaret or Linda until after the ceremony. On what should have been their big day, Sarah and David exchanged vows under an old oak tree in their backyard. It was simple, beautiful, and drama-free. Sarah wore a casual white dress, David wore his best suit, and they were surrounded by people who truly loved them. It wasn't the lavish celebration they'd planned, but standing there together, Sarah realized the most important thing was that they were marrying each other. When Margaret found out about the secret wedding, she completely lost it. Just days after they returned from their honeymoon, she and Linda showed up at their house, furious and demanding answers. How could you do this to us? Margaret screamed. How could you get married and not tell your own mother? What happened next shocked everyone. Sarah finally revealed years of secret abuse, all the names Margaret had called her when David wasn't around, all the cruel comments, all the ways she'd been excluded from family activities. David was horrified as Sarah listed example after example of his mother's cruelty. Margaret tried to deny it, but Linda's reactions confirmed everything. David had heard enough. He told his mother and sister they were done, that if they couldn't respect his wife, they couldn't respect him. But Margaret and Linda weren't going to accept being cut off quietly. They got a burner phone to harass David during their honeymoon, sending twisted messages blaming Sarah for brainwashing him. When Sarah and David returned home, they found Margaret and Linda waiting by their house. What started as shouting quickly escalated into physical violence. Margaret lunged at Sarah. David tried to protect his wife. Linda pushed David. It became a chaotic fight on their front doorstep until police sirens filled the air. The police arrested both Margaret and Linda for assault and trespassing. Margaret's cries of "I'm his mother" fell on deaf ears as she was handcuffed and taken away. Sarah and David pressed charges and obtained a restraining order. 4 months later, Linda's criminal husband was found guilty of fraud and faced prison time, proving that Margaret's investment in his bail money was completely worthless. Today, Sarah and David are no contact with Margaret and Linda by choice and by law. Their home is more peaceful than it's ever been. They're seeing a therapist together and building their own family traditions. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love you most are the ones who hurt you deepest. But Sarah learned that her real family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by who shows up with love, respect, and support. What would you have done in Sarah's situation? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to hear more incredible, true stories like this, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell.